I am known as Emily, and I have reached the age of 32 years. For the past 4 years, I've been bound in matrimony to a man I believe to be my ally, a figure who would perpetually stand by my side. Yet, as the days unfolded, it became clear that my union extended beyond him. It encompassed his whole lineage, and it was abundantly evident that I was regarded as nothing more than an outsider. It has not always been this dire. At the outset of our relationship, his mother, Linda, exhibited a kindness that bordered on excessive. She would shower me with praise, proclaiming me a remarkable find, and boast to all about the fortune her son had stumbled upon. Initially, I perceived her actions as mere hospitality, yet in retrospect, it seemed she was assessing me, attempting to discern what advantages she might derive from our interaction. It is evident that my origins are steeped in wealth, not the ostentatious variety, but rather the sort where financial concerns about rent were non-existent, and holidays were consistently spent in locales adorned with pristine white sands and luxurious accommodations. I did not initiate with that. I toiled diligently, forged my own path, and never depended on the affluence of my kin. Yet, once Linda became aware, the entire landscape shifted. In an instant, I transcended the confines of mere identity. I was no longer just Emily. I was affluent Emily. She began to utter subtle remarks. Initially, the remarks were trivial, such as insinuating a lack of culinary skills due to a background surrounded by professional cooks, or suggesting an ignorance of budgeting, as if it were an alien concept. Yet as time passed, the bitterness in her tone grew increasingly overt. I cannot fathom what my son finds appealing in a person so utterly pampered, she remarked at one point. I dismissed it with a chuckle, believing she was merely jesting, yet I ought to have recognized the truth lurking beneath the surface. Her demeanor influenced my husband, Daniel. He was not the same when our paths first crossed. He exhibited kindness, a fierce independence, and a relentless ambition. Yet, as time passed, I became increasingly aware of how effortlessly his mother's views infiltrated his own mind. He would cast a disdainful glance whenever I chose a costly dish at the restaurant, despite the fact that I was the one footing the bill. He would deride my discussions about work, treating my achievements as if they were merely bestowed upon me without effort. And then, the most troubling aspect was when he began to instill a sense of guilt in me for not distributing a greater portion of my resources to his family. Initially, it was but a mere whisper. His parents were ensnared in the relentless grip of their mortgage, and he inquired if I might extend a hand to alleviate their burden. I did not hesitate for a moment. I have addressed it. Subsequently, it evolved into a routine occurrence. They found themselves in constant need of new appliances, followed by a new car, and then funds for emergencies that always seemed to lack urgency. In each occasion, Linda behaved as though I was in their debt. I began to sense a shift within myself, transforming from a partner into a mere instrument of financial provision. Events culminated in a decisive moment several months prior. I found myself wearied by the burden of sustaining the financial responsibilities within our union. I attempted to engage Daniel in conversation regarding the matter, yet he merely dismissed my efforts. "You possess an abundance, Em," he remarked one evening. "What significance does it truly hold?" It was at that moment that a profound understanding dawned upon me. It was of no consequence to him, for he regarded me not as a companion of equal standing. He regarded me as a mere instrument for his own ends. I began to withdraw, silently orchestrating my departure. I ceased all payments, allowing the debts to accumulate under his name. I was curious to observe the duration it would take for him to comprehend that I was not merely an infinite source of wealth. He remained oblivious, at least for the moment. Yet Linda did. This leads me to the subject of Christmas. Annually, we make our way to the residence of his progenitors. It is an experience I dread, yet I partake in it to avoid the inevitable consequences of absence. This year, however, an unsettling air pervaded the atmosphere, suggesting a departure from the familiar. There was a certain self-satisfaction to Linda, an excess of cheerfulness in her tone as she welcomed me at the threshold. The house was adorned with exquisite decorations, the scent of cinnamon and pine wafting through the air, yet an unsettling sensation lingered, suggesting that all was not as it seemed. The evening meal unfolded as a familiar exercise in veiled hostility. Linda emphasized the struggles that had befallen their family, casting a sharp look in my direction, as though my choice to withdraw financial support was a direct affront to her. Daniel scarcely acknowledged my presence throughout the evening, engrossed in conversation with his father and brother, as though I were invisible. Then, following the evening meal, the moment for the exchange of presents arrived. I sat on the couch, observing as the gifts were distributed among the gathering. Linda presented a meticulously wrapped box to Daniel, another to his brother, one to her husband, and one to her daughter-in-law. Even the offspring of the next generation received a considerable heap of presents. The chamber resonated with the sharp sound of paper being ripped apart, mingled with the fervent echoes of laughter. I lingered in anticipation, and in that stillness, I became aware of a peculiar occurrence. There existed no options for me. Linda must have perceived the dawning comprehension on my countenance, for a smile crept upon her lips. A gradual, contented grin, reminiscent of a feline poised to strike at its vulnerable prey. "Oh dear," she remarked, her tone laced with insincerity. "Have we overlooked an individual?" Daniel let out a low, sardonic laugh beside me. He made no effort to conceal it. A smoldering sensation ignited within my chest, a quiet yet persistent heat that seemed to grow with each passing moment. I felt no resentment regarding the presents. Their audacity was staggering, a calculated cruelty that left me both incredulous and disturbed. I required nothing from them, yet their actions spoke volumes of their intent. They sought to bring about my degradation. They sought to diminish my sense of self. I regarded Linda, mirroring her smile with a calculated expression. "That is acceptable," I remarked, my tone airy. "I have not overlooked your presence." Her smile wavered ever so slightly. I delved into my bag and extracted a modest envelope. It was a mere fragment, a solitary piece of paper tucked away within. Yet, as I extended it towards her, I caught the initial glimmer of doubt in her gaze. She paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind before she reached for it. And when she opened it, when she comprehended the full weight of what I had bestowed upon her, her countenance lost all hue. I reclined in my chair, savoring the stillness that enveloped the space. Linda parted her lips, yet silence enveloped her, rendering her voiceless. Daniel leaned in, his gaze fixated on the page, absorbing every word with a sense of urgency. As realization dawned upon him, his demeanor transformed, the arrogance dissipating in a heartbeat. The remainder of the household, engrossed in their presence, remained oblivious to the change that had quietly unfolded. Yet they would, for this was not merely a hasty gift for the holiday season. This was an endeavor I had meticulously orchestrated for weeks, a moment poised on the brink of transformation, and I intended to savor every moment of it. Linda's fingers clenched the paper, her knuckles paling in their grip. Her mouth moved in a futile dance, yet silence enveloped her words. I could almost visualize the mechanisms whirring in her mind, desperately seeking a means to manipulate the situation, to reassert her dominance. Daniel, positioned next to her, exhibited swifter reflexes. His head jerked in my direction, his voice emerging as a sharp, hushed murmur. "Emily, what is this contraption before me?" I allowed a faint smile to creep across my face as I lifted the glass to my lips, savoring the moment with a deliberate, measured sip. "Ah, it seems the realization has yet to dawn upon you." I inclined my head, pretending to care. "This is a notification, Daniel. A significantly crucial matter." Linda's hands trembled as she pored over the paper once more, her gaze flitting across the words as if she could compel them to transform. Yet they would not, for what she grasped in her hands was a formal notification from a bank. From this moment forth, the mortgage payments on their residence, which I had dutifully managed for the past 3 years, would cease to be fulfilled. Linda inhaled sharply, her eyes darting to meet mine. You mustn't proceed with this, she whispered fiercely. I arched an eyebrow in skepticism. I am capable, and I complied. The hue of her complexion shifted from an eerie pallor to a vivid, mottled crimson. She appeared on the brink of detonation, yet I had not completed my task. You see, Linda, I continued, my voice carrying a hint of irony, for years I have been financing this dwelling, your dwelling, from my own resources, and you have never once shown the courtesy to express gratitude for it. No, rather, you chose to ridicule me, diminish my worth, and regard me as nothing more than a mere source of financial gain. I took another sip of my drink, relishing the palpable unease that hung around us. This year, I resolved to present you with a genuine offering. Accountability. The atmosphere had descended into an unsettling stillness. Daniel cast a wary glance between me and his mother, his hands clenching into tight fists. You're being excessively dramatic, he uttered with clenched jaws. This is trivial, Emily. Trivial? I emitted a faint chuckle. Are you suggesting that I am being intentionally left out of the Christmas festivities? As if I were the sole figure in this gathering, devoid of a token, while you all reveled in the irony of it? I placed my glass upon the table and locked my eyes with his, unwavering. Negative, Daniel. This is not trivial. This is just. Linda emitted a harsh, sardonic laugh. Do you truly believe this enhances your image? Do you believe this elevates your stature? She trembled the paper in her grasp, as if such emotion could reverse the irrevocable. Your actions merely confirm what has long been understood. Your self-interest knows no bounds. I let out a heavy sigh, laden with the weight of unspoken thoughts. Ah, yes, the affluent young woman exhibits a lack of generosity by refusing to perpetually finance her relatives by marriage. How lamentable! I incline my body ever so slightly, as if drawn by an unseen force. Listen closely, Linda. I'm under no obligation to you. I did not partake in such actions. Yet I continued to give and give and give regardless. And in place of appreciation, I received derision. So pardon me if I find myself devoid of kindness. One cannot simply cease the act of payment, she exclaimed, her tone escalating with urgency. I smiled once more. Ah, but indeed I possess that capability. The burden of the mortgage rested solely upon my shoulders. Do you recall? I merely shrugged. Now, the burden of understanding falls squarely upon your shoulders. I recommend you begin your search for employment opportunities. Her jaw dropped in astonishment. The truth of the situation was at last becoming undeniable. For years, they had existed in a state of complacency, believing that my wealth would perpetually serve as their safety net, that I would perpetually be present to rectify their dilemmas. Not any longer. Daniel rose suddenly, looming above me, his expression contorted with exasperation. Your behavior is quite absurd, Emily. This impacts me as well. I incline my head. Indeed it does. My voice maintained a steady composure. Yet within me, a tempest of anxiety surged. Yet, the decision was yours to make. You allowed them to degrade me, and you joined in their mockery without hesitation. Thus, you shall all confront the repercussions as one. His jaw tightened with a resolute tension. We are united in matrimony. At this moment, best silence him. Linda, her grip on the paper tightening as if it were her only salvation, at last appeared to comprehend that her frantic cries would not remedy the situation. She faced Daniel, her voice quivering with an unspoken weight. You must rectify this, she murmured. Engage in conversation with her. Compel her to reconsider her stance. Daniel paused, his gaze fixed on me with an intensity that suggested a desperate yearning for understanding. Emily, perhaps it would be best to defer this discussion for another time. Is that acceptable? I released a soft, breathy chuckle. Oh, Daniel, there is no tomorrow. I rose from my seat, clutching my purse tightly. Season's greetings to all. I trust that the offerings will bring you pleasure. And with that, I stepped through the threshold, abandoning them to their meticulously crafted tableau of seasonal cheer. Except now, the weight of my actions loomed over them, dark and oppressive, like an impending storm. For the first time, They would confront the reality of existence devoid of my financial support. And that, amused as I emerged into the frigid night, was the finest gift I could have bestowed upon myself. As I emerged into the open, the biting chill of winter enveloped me, a stark reminder of the world beyond the confines of warmth. It was an act of emancipation, a release from the shackles of oppression, imbued with a sense of profound artistry. Behind me, the muffled chaos of the house persisted, Linda's piercing cries, Daniel's frantic efforts to soothe her, and the unsettling buzz of a Christmas celebration that had spiraled into disarray. I smiled, a fleeting expression in a world where such gestures often masked deeper truths. Joyous tidings to myself. As I settled into my vehicle, I inhaled deeply, bracing myself for the journey ahead. The burden I had been oblivious to was abruptly lifted, leaving me with an unexpected sense of relief. Yet, I was acutely aware that this was far from the end. Far from it. Linda was not one to relinquish her prized possession without a struggle. And Daniel, he had been so thoroughly dominated by her influence for such an extended period that I questioned whether he retained the capacity for independent thought at all. Indeed, before I could even begin to navigate away from the confines of my own home, my phone erupted into a cacophony of notifications. Daniel. I chose to disregard it. Then arrived the writings. Danny textaddle. Emily, return to the confines of the dwelling. It is imperative that we engage in a discussion. This is no laughing matter. Your actions are undermining the spirit of the holiday season. This situation can be remedied. Cease the theatrics. Are you truly departing because of a handful of gifts? I emitted a brief, mirthless chuckle. A handful of gifts. That was quite the irony. Before I could even engage the gears of my vehicle, a dark figure flitted across my line of sight, obscuring the world beyond. A knot formed in my stomach as the identity became clear. Linda. She stood resolutely before my vehicle, arms folded, her expression contorted with an intensity of fury that was both raw and palpable. The biting wind lashed at her meticulously arranged hair, yet she appeared utterly indifferent. She embarked on a quest, driven by an unwavering purpose. I cracked my window open just a fraction. Proceed, Linda. She advanced a step nearer. It is imperative that we engage in a discussion. I exhaled heavily, a sense of foreboding settling in. It seems we have exhausted our discourse for the evening. Her lips twisted into a semblance of a smile, yet resembled more a display of teeth than any genuine expression of joy. Your comprehension of the situation appears to be lacking, my dear. Ah, there it lay, stark and undeniable. Dearest, that patronizing little moniker she had employed since the moment I wed her offspring. It had always lacked warmth, serving merely as a subtle reminder that, in her perception, I occupied a lower status. I gazed at her, indifferent. I grasped the situation entirely. Her insincere grin faltered. Do you truly? For this dwelling, this kin, this constitutes the essence of Daniel's existence. This signifies that your existence is intertwined with it as well. Your actions extend beyond my own suffering. They also inflict harm upon him. I inclined my head, and her nostrils flared as she reiterated, as if unable to comprehend that I was not instantly succumbing to her words. Are you truly prepared to dismantle everything for the sake of trivial holiday disputes? I emitted a faint chuckle. Linda, this matter transcends the triviality of holiday gifts. It was never so. This concerns the fundamental principle of respect, something you have withheld from me. She derided. Deference? You are abandoning your husband and his kin, leaving them to face the harshness of financial neglect. What you perceive as respect is merely a manifestation of self-interest. I shook my head, my patience dwindling to a perilous edge. Indeed, what is truly selfish is the expectation that I should finance your existence while you deride me in secret. What is truly selfish is the act of finding amusement while I endure the humiliation of Christmas morning. I leaned slightly out of the window, my voice cutting and cold. Pray tell, Linda, what became of your respect? For the first time, she faltered. I could perceive the cogs whirring in her mind, desperately seeking an alternative approach, another method to exert her influence over me. But I had grown weary of her manipulations. I placed my hand upon the gear shift. At this juncture, if it pleases you, I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to return to my domicile. Her visage grew resolute. This is far from concluded. A faint smile crossed my lips. Ah, I placed my trust in that certainty. With that, I closed my window and throttled my engine, a subtle yet unmistakable declaration of intent. She ultimately withdrew, her lips forming a narrow, unyielding line. I did not cast a glance behind me as I departed from the confines of the driveway. Yet, as I departed, a sense of foreboding settled within me. It was clear that Linda would not accept this defeat without a struggle. No, she was determined to resist, and I was prepared for her challenge. I returned to my dwelling just prior to the stroke of midnight, the atmosphere within feeling unsettlingly still. The holiday lights I had neglected to take down appeared peculiar now, almost derisive in their persistence. It was the sort of Christmas that filled one with a deep sense of dread, a longing for its swift conclusion. Yet, in this moment, solitude enveloped me. For the first time in years, the notion of solitude no longer carried the weight of despair. I flung my coat onto the chair and removed my boots with a decisive kick. As I poured a drink, I settled into the couch, finally permitting myself to experience something beyond the mounting frustration that had accumulated over the months. The front door banged, shut at the precise moment I was poised to take a sip, and a chill of dread coursed through me. I recognized the figure immediately. Daniel. He burst into the living room, his countenance flushed with rage. Emily, what seems to be the matter? His voice trembled, a volatile blend of anger and exasperation coursing through it. I raised my gaze from the vessel, savoring a measured sip before placing it back upon the surface. The issue at hand is quite evident, Daniel. He raked his fingers through his hair, moving restlessly to and fro before me. Do you genuinely believe this was the appropriate course of action? You shamed me, shamed us before my family. His voice ascended with every utterance. Are you truly going to depart in such a manner? I arched an eyebrow in skepticism. Are you truly upset because I chose to leave? Or are you enraged because I was not the one subjected to degradation? That struck with a force I had not anticipated. Daniel's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with a tumultuous blend of pain and fury. This matter does not concern you, Emily. This concerns our collective existence, concerning my identity. It is imperative that you grasp this concept. Do you truly believe I desire to find myself ensnared in the midst of such turmoil? Do you believe I desire to make a choice between you and my mother? I rose to my feet, an outward serenity masking the turmoil that raged within. You made your choice long ago, Daniel. With each shared laugh, with every averted gaze, your choice was unmistakably clear. He shook his head, his eyes filled with a haunting despair. That is an injustice. She is my progenitor. Precisely. And you have allowed her to dictate the course of your existence. For years, I have existed solely as the one who settles the accounts while you remain ensnared in her theatrics. Are you aware of the profound degradation that entails? He advanced a step in my direction, his expression momentarily easing into something gentler. I never intended for circumstances to unfold in such a manner, Emily. Yet this is my kin. I cannot simply eliminate them. I chuckled with a sense of despair. Is it not possible to simply remove them? Are you unable to? For the past 3 years, I have been the one shouldering the burden of your mother's mortgage, Daniel. Yet, the moment I request a modicum of respect, you deem my plea as unreasonable. Who is the one exhibiting selfishness at this moment? He hesitated to reply at once. Instead, he inhaled deeply and raked his fingers through his hair once more. It was never my desire to find myself in this predicament. I did not request that you bear the burden of all expenses. Yet, you persisted in your actions. And now you behave as though I am the one who sought this outcome. The word struck with an intensity one had not anticipated. It was not a request you made, Daniel. Yet, you certainly did not prevent it. You did not belittle me, nor did she reduce me to the status of a mere object of pity. I exhaled unsteadily, my heart thundering within my ribcage. And now you expect me to have sympathy for your plight? Daniel remained motionless, his posture defeated, as though the burden of all our long-evaded truths had finally descended upon him. Yet, he shook his head once more, as if attempting to rid himself of the harsh truths surrounding him. I am at a loss regarding your expectations, Emily. I find myself at a loss regarding the means to rectify this situation. I gazed upon him, truly gazed upon him for the first time in an age. His visage, once cherished, now bore the weight of bewilderment and fatigue. But I had reached the limit of my justifications for his actions. What I desire, I articulated with deliberation, is for you to select me, for singular moment. Yet, it seems you are unable to, are you not? You are preoccupied with the desire to satisfy your mother, adopting a posture of victimhood in this situation. I refuse to be the one who suffers, he murmured, his tone barely above a whisper. Yet, I find myself at a loss for alternatives. All is disintegrating, Emily. I turn my head in disbelief. No, you're disintegrating. This was never a matter of you and I, Daniel. This was a reflection on your inability to assert your own position. You relinquished your authority entirely, and now you cast the blame upon me for the consequences that have ensued. He inhaled deeply, as if seeking to steady his frayed nerves. Yet, I could perceive the simmering frustration lurking just below the facade. Perhaps it would be wise to pause for a moment, he murmured, barely audible. My heart contorted in a manner I had not anticipated. It pierced with a sharpness that lingered. Yet I remained steadfast. A moment of respite. I reiterated, do you truly believe that is what we require? A respite? For years, I have existed in a perpetual state of suspension, Daniel. And now you propose that we require additional distance to come to a resolution? Perhaps we indeed do, he retorted. Perhaps I require a measure of distance to find clarity, to contemplate. I emitted a bitter chuckle, retreating a pace. Do you comprehend the situation? Perhaps that is the most prudent course of action. For if you require time to determine whether you will support me or remain ensnared by maternal control, then our affair has reached its conclusion. His expression became gentler, yet the moment had passed. The harm was irrevocable. Emily, I implore you to reconsider. Yet, I found myself no longer attuned to the words being spoken. I averted my gaze, my eyes aflame with uncried sorrow. Merry Christmas, Daniel, I uttered with a chill in my voice before ascending the stairs and entering the bedroom. I shut the door with a deliberate finality and pressed my back against it, drawing in unsteady breaths. I understood that this was not the conclusion. Far from it. Yet it seemed to mark a pivotal moment, as though I had at last seized the reins of my existence. At long last, and regardless of what transpired thereafter, I would not be the one to yield. This time, the answer is no. Several months have passed since that fateful evening. Much has transformed since the altercation between Daniel and myself. I truly believed it would signify the conclusion of all that he was, of his kin, of the existence we had constructed together. Yet, as the days unfolded, I found myself experiencing a sense of relief that surpassed my initial expectations. Initially, it proved to be a struggle. I must confess, uncertainty lingered in my mind. I found myself trapped in a loop of contemplation, questioning whether my choice had been a grave error. The reality is, departing from him seemed akin to surrender, yet remaining felt like capitulation. It had transcended his individual concerns. It concerned his mother and the years of corrosive conduct I had been unwittingly tolerating. I believed I could dismiss it, set it aside, conjure justifications. Yet in this moment of clarity, I recognized the profound unhealthiness of it all. In those initial weeks, Daniel made several attempts to connect, dispatching messages and even resorting to phone calls. Initially, I chose to overlook his presence. Then, one day, I decided to lend an ear to his perspective. We convened at a modest establishment, where the air was thick with the aroma of brewed coffee and the whispers of patrons filled the space. He appeared exhausted, drained of vitality, and the familiar glimmer in his eyes had vanished. He resembled a mere specter of the person I had once recognized. Yet, what resonated with me most was the palpable desire in his expression, as if he yearned for me to set everything right. His expression revealed a profound sense of helplessness, a deep-seated desperation that was impossible to ignore. Yet, I found no compulsion to mend him any longer. "Emily, I regret to inform you," he began, his voice trembling with uncertainty. "I ought to have defended you. I ought to have prioritized you above all else. Yet my mother has consistently exerted an overpowering presence. I found myself at a loss, uncertain of how to confront the situation. I inhaled deliberately. Daniel, my anger has dissipated. I find myself utterly fatigued. I am weary of maintaining the facade that all was well while I bore the burden alone. I was shouldering the burden of your family's home, managing the expenses, all the while you allowed her to demean me." He appeared as though he wished to interject, yet I continued my discourse, while you persisted in your laughter at my expense alongside her. It had ceased to be a mere jest. You were an accomplice, and you allowed me to feel diminished within the confines of my own dwelling. Are you aware of the sensation that brings? To be the individual perpetually offering, endlessly relinquishing, while remaining unseen by those around. He gulped, his gaze shimmering with a hint of remorse. I had no intention for it to unfold in such a manner. I believed I was acting justly, striving to maintain harmony. Yet, I realized now that I was merely failing you. I nodded deliberately, observing as his expression disintegrated beneath the burden of my utterances. "You were, Daniel, indeed you were." We lingered in silence for a moment, observing the turmoil within him as he grappled with the elusive search for the appropriate words. Yet, the reality was their words had lost all significance for me. I sought not an apology, but rather a presence that eluded me entirely. "Transformation. I will not return," I declared, my tone resolute. "I have reached the end of my tolerance for this situation. Finished with you, finished with your kin. I require no one's endorsement to find contentment." He parted his lips as if to utter a thought, yet hesitated, sealing his words within. He merely nodded, the weight of the truth settling upon him. Since that time, I've been granted the opportunity to truly exhale, to experience the essence of breathing. The burden that had pressed upon my heart for an eternity was at last released. I found the opportunity to turn my attention inward, to contemplate my true desires. I began to surround myself with companions who uplifted me, individuals who instilled a sense of worth within me. As for Daniel, his silence has been quite pronounced of late. A few messages exchanged, yet no genuine effort to revive what once was. It seems he is either oblivious to the means of resolution or perhaps too entangled in his own chaos to perceive the situation with clarity. Yet, amidst the chaos, a significant truth has dawned upon me. I have no obligation to mend his flaws. I refuse to bear the weight of his family's malignancy any longer. And if he remains obstinate, then I have no power to compel a transformation. His regret is of no consequence to me. I have no interest in his apologies. I am under no obligation to him whatsoever. It is quite amusing indeed. For all this time, I believed the fault lay within me. But now I understand that the issue lay not within myself, but rather in their actions. Daniel, his mother, the entire household. They seized, and seized while I surrendered. I believed it was love. Yet affection does not diminish one's sense of self. It does not render you unseen. And it certainly does not evoke the sensation of being an insignificant detail. Regarding the mortgage, I have ceased all payments. A few months prior, the bank had approached them, and Daniel reached out to me, inquiring if I could intervene once more. I firmly declined. I offered no justification whatsoever. It transcended mere financial gain. It was fundamentally about the integrity of the principle itself. They were compelled to navigate the complexities of their situation independently. And it was no simple task. Yet, it no longer concerns me. What remains is for me to reconstruct. and I shall proceed according to my own dictates.